do retakes?
I actually recorded that. Welcome to Crew Call with the Scooters. There are no retakes. Today I have the very special pleasure of introducing Rick Schlieper, who is my dad. And it's Father's Day week, so we were pretty excited that he agreed to do this today. So thank you, Dad, for being on Crew Call with the Scooters.
Absolutely.
And being my dad.
Okay.
And all of the gray hair on his head, even is really not from me. It's from Ricky. So I'll just say that.
I'm sure you have your share.
Yeah, just a couple hairs. So I wanted to, because I think it's really, I always talk about you and your career and what you've done, but also I always talk about Grandma and Pap and where you grew up and how all of that kind of started, because you started off in the city.
Right.
You were a city kid in Mount Oliver, and then you guys moved to the country.
But
Yeah.
it was the country then, which no longer is Peters Township.
No, it's not.
Right.
So, but how old were you when you guys left Mount Oliver?
I was in just started 7th grade.
7th grade. So you really grew up, your whole childhood was in the city.
Right, exactly.
And
walking to school, all that.
Did you come home for lunch?
Yes, we did. Absolutely. We got to come home for lunch, and there was just enough time to swallow down lunch and watch a cartoon on TV, which was probably my favorite part of the day, and then walk back to school.
What did Grandma make you? You and did Uncle Gary too, right? He came home with you?
Right, exactly. Right. We had, usually we had cheese sandwiches. That was the grilled cheese sandwiches. That was a big deal.
Okay.
Right. And once in a while we have chipped ham sandwiches. There's always a sandwich, that sort of thing,
So you went back to school. So then why did you, because didn't Pap because Pap always worked in garages, right? He was a mechanic.
Right. Mechanic, right. Mm-hmm.
And so, didn't he have a place in Mount Oliver?
No, actually not. What happened was that he actually worked for a Chevrolet dealership in East Liberty.
Okay.
The Chevrolet dealership shut down, and at that particular point, he went into business with a partner and had his own garage for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then that sort of diminished, and he was hired at a Chevrolet dealership in Mount Oliver. And so he actually could walk to work, if you would. And that lasted for a while. And he was usually fairly restless as far as wanting to explore new things and develop his taste for cars. So he decided that he was going to purchase a auto recycling business, and which he did. And again, he went into it with a partner. And halfway through the negotiations, the partner sort of backed out of it, and Pap kept going forward. And so he purchased it, and so begins the story.
So begins the story of Pitt Mon, my logo, which Pap designed, right? He designed this logo?
Yes, he did. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. The orange, the bright orange of Pitt Mon. So you guys moved, he purchases it, and it's in Monongahela.
Correct.
And you all moved and built a house in Peters, Venetia.
Right. And he actually put an awful lot of labor into building the house himself. He was one of those, I can do it. He was the a self-proclaimed carpenter at times, although he did bend a few nails along the way. And he's not afraid to try anything, to tell you the truth, which is, something that you sort of model after, as you see him being able to do this or do that, as opposed to some fathers.
The so he's building the house now. Did you and Uncle Gary help at all?
We pretended, yes. I'm sure we were not much of a help, you know.
No, probably not. Now, didn't you worked? So then you moved there. You're in 7th grade, but then quickly you got a job. Didn't you work at Simmons?
Yes, yes. We went off to the farm, and we worked at the farm during the summer times, and any time that would have a break in school, we would be over the farm. So it was it was fairly interesting. I mean, it gave you a little bit of a variety of things in life, if you would. Not only did you have the talk about the cars around the dinner table, but you also had to talk about the farm and that sort of thing, you know, which I find fairly interesting.
What was the biggest difference coming from the city to farm life? I mean, it's such a difference from cement to, you know, fields.
Well, that was the problem. It seems as though, I mean, again, I'm looking through it to a 7th grader's eyes. It was like the city was very organized. You didn't have any. You had cement, and you had buildings, and there was none of these open spaces. You know, which I found that it was. It's very interesting to have an open space in the city, and usually we did an awful lot of activities on those open spaces too. When they had torn a building down, you know, that became a playground. To be quite honest with you, but I didn't really want to move out to the what we considered the country at that particular point in time.
Was it hard to adjust?
In a way, it was, because you couldn't walk to anything.
Mm.
You know, the only thing you could walk to is a bunch, you know, another woods, or, you know, more trees. You know, you couldn't walk to a deli, or you couldn't walk to go to the ice cream store, or, you know, anything like that. You know, you were pretty far away from it. Matter of fact, we were probably, to the nearest store was probably a good 2 mile. You know, which is, you know, as a 7th grader, that's something you usually don't walk. You know.
So when Pap started the business, it's auto recycling. Did he know anything about the auto recycling business? And when did Grandma start working with him?
Well, Grandma stepped in right away as the bookkeeper,
Mm-hmm.
and he had experience in it because he had not only had been a mechanic, a master mechanic all these years, but on the side, in order to make money, he would rebuild cars. Wrecked cars, and he would put them together, and of course he would do odd jobs for, you know, people that he knew, and so he actually had a very good networking thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
So and he had friends in the auto wrecking business, and it was like, you know, I can do this, I can absolutely do this, you know, and so that he forged ahead with it.
Now, Pap and Graham didn't go to college, and they, you know, started the business, started the family. You and Uncle Gary came. When did you know that you were going to go to college?
I was probably told that I was going to go to college. I would think probably about 9th grade, or I would have the opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm.
My dad had several brothers and sisters, and the oldest of which had owned his own insurance company, his own insurance agency, and he really, it was a lifestyle that I seemed to aspire to, because, you know, he went out and he played golf, and he had clients, and this, that, and the other thing, and it was the idea that you know, if I would follow his path, that would be something that would really fit into what I wanted to do in life, you know. So he didn't go to college either, but he recommended that I indeed would go to college,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where it all started.
So you graduate from Peters,
Mm-hmm.
and you start in college. We won't talk about the first year, but we'll talk about the second year. Like a bonus year.
No, I really think that was part of my life. not that it was a very good part of my life, but it was a very much of a learning experience in my life, because in the first year, I did go away from college to college and was on my own, so to speak. And I learned an awful lot that first year, not necessarily academically, but it did help me in raising my children, to be quite honest with you, because I knew how to not do it right. And I knew the signs of not doing it right. So when we sort of reversed the path in the second year and transferred colleges, I was was able to achieve what I needed to achieve.
And you didn't go into mechanics; you went into science. So when did you know that you had a hankering to learn all things about science and biology and atoms and things?
Well, what really happened there, I think the farm had an awful lot to do with it.
Oh, okay.
Because it was just amazing to me, during the seasons that occur on the farm, you go out and you would plant and bring those plants out of the greenhouse and put them in the ground and nurture them and see them grow and fertilize them and water them. And it was just amazing that these things took place. And it was like, wow, I need to understand this. It just fascinated me, and so that's where I think my love of science and biology in particular came into play.
So you graduate from Cal and you have 2 master's degrees. And what are they in?
One's a master's of science in biology, and the other one's a master's of education.
So you become a teacher.
Yes. Yeah.
Teaching seems to run in the family. Sister is a teacher. Sister-in-law is a teacher. In the teaching professor. I'm not a teacher, but you go in to teach. And where did you start? Where did you get your first job?
My first job was in Bethel Park, and I was there for 2.5 years, and then I moved on to Robert Morris University, and I was there for 5 years at Robert Morris.
And at this point, you had Gretchen at some point because you met Mom and got married, and then
Right.
had a little blonde maniac named Gretchen. So you have this child. And what was happening? Because Uncle Gary was already starting to work for the business with
Right. What he went through college in industrial arts when they had a very fine program in industrial arts in California, and graduated from there. So he was actually a very good fit for the business itself. And he came out of there and went and assisted my father in his business. So that was, they were going along fairly well there. And as a matter of fact, during my, it was sort of strange because the way that I had my schedule set up with the college, I would teach every day. And some days I would only teach a half day. Well, it just seemed as though that I would wander down to the family business and help them out down there the days that I had off or whatever, 2 completely different environments, but both of them which I felt very comfortable in.
So when did you finally make the full switch?
That was, well, I guess the real reason there, my lifelong dream was to be a college professor, all right, and have time to play golf, and that sort of thing, because I always loved to play golf. And I found out that on a college professor's salary and with a small child, I didn't have enough money to play golf, although I did have the time. And here there was opportunity with my father's business and my brother to make a whole lot of money, but at the same time not have a whole lot of time to play golf. But it was more behooving to the family for me to make that money and move forward that way.
Right.
But I will say that the Lord's always provided an outlet for me there. With being on Christian school boards, etc. In my lifetime to help satisfy my thirst for seeing education and education done properly.
And that's important. That's always been the first and foremost.
Right.
And maybe trying to instill farming into your daughters. I mean, there's no reason to call Johnny Tracks and say your 12-year-old is ready to pick strawberries. But my summers quickly became not my summers anymore.
Well, they were always good experiences. Although you didn't think that was a good experience at the time, but it's at least a memorable one.
It was. Well, I think we learned really early on, and I think we started going down to Pitt Mon with you at around 5 or 6.
Right.
Alternate kids.
Mm-hmm.
And Saturday mornings. I don't know why we got up that early, but we would go down. It didn't matter if it was snowing like a blizzard or 4,000 degrees out. We were always sweeping up dirt.
Well, if you remember, it was sort of a bonding moment, because I usually took each of you down individually, and we had breakfast in the morning, and we had time to chat, and then you'd come down and see, what the business looked like and what was going on, and you had questions, and you'd go through the cash drawer and things like that. It was
Dad would give me money always.
Yeah, right.
$5 in mystery. No, we did. We went to Hills in the morning, down at Hill for breakfast, and I would have toast, buttered toast with strawberry jelly, and Donald Duck orange juice.
There you go.
It was overwhelming, and it would drive me crazy because I would walk in and you always knew everybody in there, or Eaton Park, because everybody knew you guys.
Right.
And they would go, "Oh, Rick, you brought the boss with you."
Right.
And it bothered me so much because I'm like, I'm 5 years old. I'm not the boss. It's my dad. Like, it bothered me that people would say that to me all the time. I'm like, this is so odd. Like, why are they saying that? And then I realized later, I'm like, oh, they're kind of making fun of me. Yeah. So it always bothered me. I still talk about that to this day. So
yes.
You stay down there. You guys grow the business at some point. And I mean, auto salvage is, it's don't call this a junkyard. I mean, I think that was the big sign on the recycling plant.
Right.
So what is auto salvage? Because we have the yard and then we had stores. So what kind of work was that?
Well, what it basically consisted of was buying late model salvage, automotive and truck salvage, and pre-dismantling it or taking some of the parts off of it. And then sending those parts, which were more consumable parts, to the stores to have them put on the shelf. So that our stores looked like new parts stores when you would walk in, although they were, the majority of them were all used parts.
Right.
And then with the yard, that's where the heavy dismantling took place, where the drivetrains, motors, transmissions, rear ends, transfer cases, that sort of thing, were dismantled and put on shelves and cycled through. That we actually recycle those, sell them. Now the junkyard part of it, if you would, it was actually the scrap, and which was left over. And of course, we had somebody come down and crush that and get rid of it. But that was the basic premise of the business.
But it changed. The business model changed a couple different times as you guys were running it and evolving, because then you had stores like Pep Boys come into play, and there was a lot of merging or going out of businesses in that arena. How did you look at that business? Because there was a lot of hardship. I mean, not only was the weather, it was either so hot or so cold, and you're out in the yard, and it's hard. I mean, it's hard work. You're getting cars in, you're pulling the parts off of them, and you're doing all that. But you're going through these major transitions in terms of business. How do you, and you're working in it, how do you step back and think about how are we going to get through the season, but also what's the long-term strategy to keep this business going? Like, is there one time that happened and you and Uncle Gary or you and Pat and Graham like step back and, or just you kind of going, why am I doing this? But the moment of you guys having that thought process of like, we have to pivot, or we have to do something a little different, or we have to invest in the business and become more technologically advanced, or.
Well, I think the major change of the business is when the inventories became computerized and then subsequently went online.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it really affected the business. It became much more competitive. Not only did the selling of the parts go online, but also the purchase of the salvage went online. Mm. So, you know, we would used to go to these salvage auctions and would know everybody there, and so, you know, you'd get your 5 or 6 units that you needed or whatever, you know, without too much of a hassle. But now, you know, as we sit down to bid, we not only bid against people in our area, but we bid against people all over the world. And literally, I mean, all over the world. I mean, we from Saudi Arabia to United Arab Emirates to Africa to South America, and they're bidding on the same car we're bidding on, and with their currency and all that, you know, it becomes very international at that point.
Right.
And how, you know, it's very difficult to buy internationally in an international platform and sell locally. You know, it's very difficult, and the margins and whatever are not there where they used to be.
Right.
So you have to increase your volume. Okay, you have to be more specific on. There are certain things that we basically stepped over, if you would, in the dismantling of a car or recycling of a car, because we didn't believe that there was enough value there to actually sell that part. Mm-hmm. Now we go down, not to the last bolt, but we take it down fairly well. And in addition to that, we have all these computers that are on the cars now, which are very expensive to buy new. So the complexion changes, but the opportunity changes also. So you have to change as the opportunities are there. So one part that you put a whole lot of stock in when you would buy a car that you could recover a lot of your money is perhaps no longer there, like catalytic converters. We used to get really a lot of money for catalytic converters, but the only thing we can do by law right now is to core them. Mm-hmm. So, you know, so there's other things on that car, but as I said, like the computers, mm-hmm. that you can make some profit on.
When we were, I think probably in high school, I remember you driving up to, I don't know where we were, but you were like, and they're chopping cars. There was a lot of that where people would steal cars and chop them and stuff like that. When that comes into the business, in that mentality, what I'll call a cheating mentality comes into the business. Mm-hmm. How is that you talk about reputation management, because there's a lot of trust that goes into dealing in cars and parts, because you're dealing with other auto bodies and you're dealing with, you know, other people in the industry. When you have people that right. are kind of tearing away the brand reputation of what you're doing, how do you stay above that?
Well, I think as you mature in your business and as your business grows, you really pick and choose your customers to a great extent. When you're struggling and doing the best you possibly can, you as a business owner sometimes will put up with an awful lot of aggravation from a client. Mm-hmm. And but as you mature in your business strategy, and also you have a little bit more wealth behind you, if you would, or more inventory or better reputation, you don't have to jump through those hoops, and you try to avoid them. Not that you didn't in the first place, but just from the daily operations of putting bread on the table, you know, you have to do what you have to do. Right. And you try to do it obviously legitimately. Mm-hmm. But again, there's just certain people that are difficult to deal with. And that's just part of life, you know.
I don't know anything about that.
And sometimes if you can eliminate them out of your repertoire of clients, life is a little bit easier. It's a little bit easier to wake up in the morning. You don't wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning worrying about this or worrying about that, and
Right.
and have that additional pressure.
What do you think a big change was in the business that you set yourself up for success? Like you were thinking about something and you were able to go, that's where we're supposed to be doing. That's kind of the business model that we're supposed to be in. Was there a moment like that?
Yeah, originally starting out, what we did was actually have contracts with insurance companies for their salvage. And we put a whole lot of emphasis on that. And as a matter of fact, that's actually when I came into the business, we were dealing with those types of situations. So it wasn't a question of going out and competition bidding against anyone. It was servicing a insurance company and picking up their salvage and paying them what they requested on the salvage. So that brought it. Some auto recyclers went that way, some didn't, but we did go that way for that period of time, and that was extremely beneficial, I think, for all parties involved.
And then when did that change? When did that start to change? And how old were you when you entered the business full time?
26, 27, somewhere around there.
Amazing.
That was a long time ago, honey.
A couple days ago.
Yeah.
A couple days ago.
Yeah.
So the business now, I mean, in terms of what you see for it, because you're, the kids, the six of us have kind of scattered a little bit, although I love Pitt Mon. It's probably the place I feel most comfortable on earth. But it's, as the transition happens in terms of, what you see for it, what you want for the business, where do you see the growth opportunity?
Well, as you go, I mean, when you, my brother and myself, and even my father, until he stepped away from the business, it was a vehicle to provide economic stability to the family. It was a question, you weren't working for someone. It was a question of, if I work hard and I do what's right and put this all together properly, I can maintain the family. And since that, obviously there's, between Gary and myself, we had 3 children. They're all college educated and very successful. And we certainly praise God for that. But at the same time, it was, it took an effort and it took planning, and it made for a more comfortable life, But now, as this evolves, that business takes a whole lot of energy.
Yeah.
All right. And I don't particularly have that energy anymore to do that. Although I know what needs to be done and whatever. And my brother has retired from the business, and it was, I mean, he'd been a blessing all those years, because we sat down and talked about things and the way things were going. And he had his areas of responsibility. I had my areas of responsibility as far as the business was concerned. And I didn't have to worry about his end of it, because I knew it was going to be taken care of, and it was going to be taken care of very well. So at any rate, but he's retired, and for one man to run that business, an older man to run that business, it just doesn't, it's not palatable, not to keep it at the pace that you need to keep it at. So we have, I have a person coming up in the business now that's young and has a whole lot of energy, and we're trying to tutor him along and make him successful.
Mm-hmm. What are you most proud of with the business?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, honey.
What's the one thing that makes you the most proud about the business? And you're not like, I don't think of you as like an arrogant man. You're really humble. You work very hard. But if there's one thing that you could say that you're really proud of, what would that be?
I would say what I'm proud of is my children, to be quite honest with you.
Especially your middle daughter.
and the reason I say that is because I believe hopefully we've afforded all our children the opportunity to succeed, and they have succeeded. They have taken advantage of the opportunities that they had in front of them, and that's what really makes me proud. I mean, family's a big thing to me, and as you well know, so that's your mother and I are just head over heels on the success of our family and how we've been blessed over these years with all you.
But there's a lot of work that is involved in that success. You know,
Right.
I think that's one of the things that we always talk about is that there is opportunity, but we did work really hard.
Right. Exactly.
Pulled out of bed at 5 years old, being told you have to go down and sweep floors. You know, I don't like that opportunity at all. No one wants that opportunity, you know. And I think about that because there was a lot of, and it was interesting too. And I bet Ricky and Greta would say the same thing, is even though we were down there, it was like we were with our cousins too, and everybody was working hard. Like everybody
Right.
was hard. Everybody was disgusting. Like it's really hard. It was really hard work. And I think about that because I think that is the one thing that all six of us have in terms of like the thought process of you have to really work hard to do.
Right. And if that is, by modeling that, if that's what we transfer to you, that is the blessing in itself.
Yeah.
Because no matter where you are, it's in any stage in life that you all have the confidence to say, I can knuckle down here and I can do what's necessary in order to be successful.
Yeah. And whatever success looks like. Maybe it's just
right. Exactly.
sleep.
Right.
So you're transitioning out a little bit of the business, although you're the most you're the busiest person I know because you're flitting around all over the place because you have rounds that you do.
Right.
You also have 6 grandchildren that are crazy amazing and all part of everything, but you're also a part of the education system because you sit on a school board. And how important is, I mean, you're seeing all of the reports about education and urban schools not having the same type of education. Wi-Fi, that's something we talk about. We did a crew call with a friend of ours, Ashley Comans, and she was talking about Wilkins, especially during COVID, that, it's like kids get online, they can get online, they can learn online, and there's all of those issues. Wilkinsburg School District, no Wi-Fi. They were handing out like sheets of paper for the kids' worksheets. And I talked to our friends in Kane, in those rural areas too, hardly any Wi-Fi. You can't get Wi-Fi service. So when you think about education, what are your thoughts on what needs to happen?
Well, I was happy to hear that we're going to try to go back to school.
Mm-hmm.
To distance learn at the beginning of school, I do not believe it would work at all. Mm-hmm. I mean, the only thing that kept the school year together this last year was the contact that the teachers made with their students at the beginning of the school year. That's what sort of kept this together. Although I'm sure the parents are, crawling up the wall here, trying to figure out Johnny's second grade math problems. Yeah. But that is really what kept it together. Now, if you had to have distance learning across the board here, with kiddos coming in with a new teacher, that would not be successful. I would be in favor of even delaying the opening of school for a while until we can have face-to-face opportunities.
Back into school. How important is education?
Well, you know, in our household, it was very important, as you well know.
I
I
know.
mean, that was a paramount item, a prime item in any of our discussions. It seems to be that, you know, that's the tool to unlock your gifts and your treasures is education. And it doesn't have to be in a college education. It can be a technical education or whatever. But you need to be educated and be submissive to a teacher that you can understand and transfer the knowledge to you so that you have that the rest of your life. That's the wonderful thing about education. You know, you can share it and you don't lose anything.
Right.
Actually, you even gain in the process, you know, which is a beautiful thing about being a teacher.
Yeah. So which one of your kids is your favorite?
I have 3 favorites. Vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. A little, we're a little Sunday cluster.
Right.
Was having girls weird for you? Because you grew up with a brother, you didn't have a sister, you had cousins and stuff, but was it like you have Gretchen? Was it like, oh, here's a daughter, and then here's another daughter, and then, you know, the golden child came last? But it was like, was it being a father of daughters? And
that
now,
was probably the best. That was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me as an individual, because I grew up in a male-oriented family, and even the generation before me, my father, you know, it was like, you need to have male children, you know, as opposed to female children. You know, it was like, really, you know, and you know, so that was a real difficult thing for me to get through at times. But I say this to this day, that the girls made a father out of me, and the boys grow up in spite of you sometimes, you know. But no, it gave me much more insight having Gretchen and also yourself as girls first. I think it was really a saving grace for when Ricky was born, to tell you the truth, because I'm sure I would have been much, much harder on him. You know, as the first male and all that happy macho crap that was spread around, you know.
well, yeah, I mean, Brian brought up in a pretty strict German household. I think definitely for you. And you know, mom is so different than you. You know, she's crazy and full of energy and love and bursting at all of the seams all of the time. How important was that for you as you had kids?
Well, she was different than anybody that I ever had known before. I mean, and that's probably one of the reasons I was attracted to her. One of several reasons, but at any rate, she looked at things a lot differently, and I was much drier than I am right now.
Are you dry now?
I certainly didn't laugh much or anything like that. I was very serious, you know, and your mother wasn't like that, and she saw the beauty in a lot of things that I didn't see. She saw the love in a lot of things that I didn't see, and so actually it was a very good compliment to putting a marriage together, you know.
You guys got married so young.
Well, young nowadays, anyhow. I think we were 21 and 20 or like that, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, it's baffling to me. It's amazing. So what do you think what's the best lesson you've learned? Like if somebody was watching this and they were a kid and they're like, he did science, he was a teacher, but he had this business. Like, what's the best advice for just anybody kind of struggling to kind of get through? Because COVID has been very difficult, and I think we're in a time right now of great unrest. What do you think the best advice you can give?
The best advice that I can give to a younger person is to be quiet and listen and observe. I think that's just so vitally important. And don't think that you have all the answers. There's just so many different adults out there. There's just so many different people in different occupations. And no matter what the occupation is, some people are very good at what they do. And those are the people you need to aspire to. The people, no matter what their occupation is, if they're doing a good job of it and they're very, and do it in a very righteous manner, they're the people that you should aspire to and try to get closer to and to understand, what motivates them. That is, I think, the best advice that I could possibly give a young person. As far as the job market is concerned.
Yeah. What about in life? What do you think the best, what's the best dad advice that you can give for somebody kind of just trying to figure it out?
Well, as you know, I mean, religion has always been a prime mover in our family, and seeking the Lord and seeking the Lord's will in your life is very important. And you need to take time each day and have your quiet time with the Lord, and he will guide you. He will take care of these situations. And again, you need to be quiet and be still, and read the Word, and all the answers are there. They're all there for you.
Well,
and you'll be blessed.
Well, thank you. I have to go back to work now.
Oh, well, you do. Okay. All right. I don't know where you got that workaholic mentality.
Yeah, I think we all have it. I mean, it doesn't matter. And all the little ones, for everybody, they're all like so incredible. I think the kids are these incredibly vibrant, strong-willed, beautiful, opinionated human beings, and I think it's just so incredible. We have Jake, who's fearless, Eric, who's just amazing, Cam, who's wild and free and dancing all over the place, and
absolutely,
who's golfing. He's doing amazing golf things, and Zach is going to graduate this year, an incredible football player, and Kay, who's with you right now because she set up the Zoom because she's our intern.
Right.
So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So
yeah, it's we're very, very blessed to have the family unit that we have.
Yeah, we are. It makes me work harder because I don't want to be a disappointment.
You'll never be a different point.
I don't know. There's a couple years there, not bet. Well, Courtney said to say hi. I love you. Thanks
I love you, honey.
Today, I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you for putting up with me.
Thanks for putting up with me, and happy Father's Day. I'm sure I will see you this weekend.
All right, thank you, honey.
All right, I love you.
Love you too.
Okay.
Bye.